It's pretty exorbitant with their fiber optic lines that come in there. So
you're planning on Annex 1 parking being, senior services buses and all that kind of stuff over there?
Yeah.
Have they mentioned any problems with the age of drivers and walking that far? You haven't heard any issues?
No, not yet. Yeah, I mean,
there might be, but not yet.
Yeah, I think the idea is that how we do it with the road is, we can't put all the road vehicles that we need at Annex 4. So our vehicles, and then the guys, they show up at the shop, they park there, they get in their other vehicle and come to the office.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the idea would be for seniors too. They, pick up their vehicle and go on their route. So one of the things I'm kind of jumping out of order, but with that, I think we'll have extra money. And one of the things we talked about doing over in Annex 1 parking lot is to construct like a 3-car garage type structure. And that would allow, because right now seniors has no place to clean their vehicles. And so, you'll see them dragging all their stuff out and cleaning just out in the open, all year long. And so it would provide a place where they could access and clean vehicles and have all the equipment and things, the cleaning supplies that they need to do that.
So kind of just a covered area like they have over here, you're looking at fully enclosed like a garage.
Yeah, kind of a garage. I mean, if they want a covered area, we can do that as part of it, but just kind of maybe like a small place where they can dispatch out of, because I know they have some times where they get together as a group. But anyway, just something that's more garage-like to provide that facility for them.
Mainly a little bit of heat, and then also too, if they got to chain those buses up, because the sun have been doing it under the bus and you got snow all over the place. The only place they had here was basically underneath that cardboard that they had.
Yeah.
This would be big enough to where you could actually pull 2 buses in there if you needed to and get them chained up, get them cleaned out. And it's a heated space, so basically it kind of helps so they're not having to be freezing out there.
Logic, I like logic.
We're trying. Let's see. So I think we talked about, we purchased the property to the west of us, the gray house, and we're looking at, and we talked to the city about vacating Grant Street and combining all that into one large parking lot. That will basically make up for where the new building sits, that parking lot. So if you flip to the third sheet, you can kind of see these are the new parking lots besides the front of the courthouse and the ones associated on Court Street. These are the ones that we will construct as a separate project. And so we'll be looking to do that once we vacate that portion of Grant Street for the West Jail parking lot, or I think we have it called parking lot A. So basically you won't be able to drive through on Grant Street anymore. And the city has said that would be okay. But they haven't actually vacated it yet. So that's the next step in the process. We purchased the Columbia Bank parking lot, and we'll be making some improvements there to maximize the space and provide some parking lot lighting. And then the other parking lot just west of the CenturyLink building where Annex 3 and 5 are, that's our other close proximity parking lot. And those will be public lots for whoever needs them, whether they're people that come to downtown and want to park there, or to the courthouse. They're just available to whoever uses them, and there should be adequate, more than adequate for our buildings. So kind of to continue with the schedule. So the plan is we had quite a few things to get to this point, building temporary spaces for seniors and WSU, and they'll come back to the new building in November at the latest. And then once juvenile, everybody moves in, we remodel this space for juvenile. So juvenile will come back over here and we'll have pretty much law and justice all in one location.
So then Annex 3 won't actually get torn down until this remodel is done.
Correct.
So juvenile's not gonna be homeless.
No, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what about, when will 5 be going then? Will 5 go when juvenile goes too?
We can move as soon as it gets vacated. We've talked about, right now we're planning where to put it up at the fairgrounds. And, after fair, if there is a fair this year, we can start construction on utilities, foundation, and be ready to move that thing. So it's possible it could occur this year. And then that would be one less project to try and finish next year.
So in terms of, where was the location? There was a lot of talk there a while back on childcare facility, using one of the old buildings for that. Which building was that you were looking at?
Yeah, so those people have toured our building several times already, Annex 4, where Public Works currently is housed.
Okay,
That's the one they're interested in.
a big building.
Yeah, yeah.
And here I was thinking Annex 5 would probably do a decent size.
No,
The need is great.
Yeah.
yeah.
So the other office that will follow some kind of a remodel, how we use it, we don't have any meeting space here, and so HR is going to be vacating their space, so there's a potential to actually have a meeting room in the courthouse. So that might be a possibility for those that are here.
Is that, go ahead. Is that gonna be challenging with, structurally as far as moving things around with the vault and
The vault can't go. Yeah, so the vault will always be
Right.
there, but around that L-shaped area,
okay,
there's an opportunity there.
because I think, aren't these, basically the vaults are,
They're the structure.
they're the
Yes.
structural
Yeah,
holding the building up.
not much we can do.
Are we gonna end up with any, I guess I would say, available space that isn't already accounted for the possibility of other ideas, like a little gym or something for our employees, or is all the space gone, used, taken, accounted for when you get it done?
Yeah, pretty much. I think this is the only one that isn't designated for some use currently. So,
It could be meeting room / gym.
There you go. We have plenty of flex.
Put 'em in
We can divide it.
Yeah.
Keep the thought
Yeah, I
process
want more
going.
than clear plexiglass. If I'm either in the gym when the meeting's going on or vice versa.
Frankly, be doing aerobics there would be great.
okay, let's see. And following that, then, like we talked about, we demo at Annex 3 where juveniles at, and then the last parking lot can be constructed, and that'll probably be 2022. I think we'll run out of weather, and won't be able to do it till the following year, but we should have enough other parking lots available to service us. And, until we're open, the need isn't there right now anyway. So that's,
Well, plus I would point out that existing spaces are 175, and when we're done, there's 300
yeah,
over. So
yeah,
I've often been, I want to be a good neighbor, and but I think we have more than adequately mitigated for the impact of the new building
yeah.
when it comes to parking.
Right.
Yeah.
My only concern in that mitigation is a lot of those parking spots are that far over.
Right.
I don't know how much they're gonna get used.
The thing about that is there isn't really much street parking on Main, which in turn, basically people, if they want to use that as a parking space, they
Right.
can, because it's a public access.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, the business owners, park in and around the courthouse that are right on Main Street. I
As
know
long as
some-
we kind of advise our employees to not park in front of the business,
Yes.
we should be okay.
Okay, so 2022, we are finally complete. It's been a long, long process. And we'll get there.
Before you leave this little graph, which it sounds like you're about to, I have a few questions if I may.
Nope, haven't got there yet, so let's dive into it.
Is there anywhere on these blueprints for break room / coffee room / I'm not seeing anything like that, but
There are,
Yeah, so what we
where they at?
Yeah, what we tried to do is provide a sink for a coffee space in each office.
Oh,
So
in each department.
each department has, if you kind of look, there's a sink area in most all of them. Some of them are shared, so economic development, natural resources shares with WSU. Seniors has one that's kind of out in their lobby for if they want to have coffee available for the public and their employees. And then there is a break room on the 3rd floor for employees.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so that
You
there's
should have used bigger letters when you wrote break room on it, and then maybe I could have read it, right?
yeah, so in the break room,
Fantastic.
there are a couple of refrigerators, there's a dishwasher, there is an oven and microwaves. Because a lot of times I know my department's been here when there's no power and we spend days, nights, weekends in this building. And so having a place to do some of those things for emergency, number one will be helpful,
Right.
and then provide something for the employees too. So
So that was one of them that employees have asked me about, and the other one that I don't know if you, previous board has discussed, but the opportunity to eat outside more in the summer, in other words, more picnic tables or what have you for the courthouse. I
yeah,
don't know if there's ever been any discussion about that.
no, we've kind of, since we have this kind of joint area between the two buildings, that we've talked about adding more picnic-like tables, like, because we have the 2 picnic tables at the corners, and maybe, somewhere between our grounds here and the new building, look for spaces to do that. I think we have a couple benches, but not more picnic tables yet. So yeah, I would agree that
Right, yeah.
that would be a
I don't think, there needs to be 900, but definitely a couple more in
Yeah.
that shady spot. That way employees can go
None on
outside
the
in the
roof.
summer and, huh?
Not on the roof, yeah.
No, I guess not.
No,
That would be really cool though.
Well, when we talk about room for growth, I see some in here, I don't think WSU is gonna fill all that. How many available offices are we gonna have for growth in terms of county employees over the next 30 years?
So we looked at, part of the feasibility study was to get office and departments projections for growth. And so we tried to incorporate that in. I think the tightest area where they're more restricted, most of them have lots of room, lots of extra room. Economic development, natural resources is probably the tightest group. And Dave, as we've gone through this, Dave's added, more people already are looking at that. So, and that's on the 2nd floor
Yeah.
at the right-hand side of the page.
And is solid waste in there, or where's solid waste at?
Solid waste is, I think, Ruby's in the corner office, out the lower
On the first floor?
court, on the 2nd floor. No, she's in there too. Solid waste, economic development, and natural
Okay,
resources
they
are
are
all
Yeah, I
in the
think they
same.
are still together. and I think
they're all
that's-
together.
I think the corner one is her office,
Yeah,
in the southeast corner of the
Yeah.
building.
and I'm not sure where her other staff person is located. They've divided up the space already, but I'm not sure, other than Ruby, who gets what. I think Dave gets the largest office on the north, it'd be the northeast corner of that space.
Isn't the noxious weeds also in with WSU?
Yeah,
So that's gonna take some
yeah.
of that space.
Oh, okay.
So they're in there too, but so I might as well talk about this while we're talking about space. So one of our biggest challenges, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years, is records retention and archiving. So a lot of departments, mine included, has been collecting files for decades, and we don't need to. And so we don't have room for that. Everybody's got, I have a whole attic, which is almost double my square footage, and it's got lots of records. And this year, we've made a huge attempt to archive stuff electronically and get rid of it. But that's a challenge we're faced with. And we hired a temporary person to help out planning and building to get rid of this stuff. And I know Dave in economic development is making a big effort to do that, but we're not going to get there.
He needs a big effort.
Well, all of us have more than, it takes a long
It
time to
does,
do
a lot.
this. And so I think we're going to need a couple more temporaries to do this, because there isn't enough room for all of this stuff, paperwork that we have, and we don't need it. So I'll probably be asking for those additional people, and we'll just use the budget from the building, because there is some contingency money in there that won't get used in it. The temporaries are not that costly to accomplish what we need to do. They just need to be able to work with somebody that knows what needs to be saved and what can be archived. And so, but offices aren't getting there.
Right.
The reason why WSU has so much space is they have so much stuff. They've made a huge effort to reduce that. And when Tracy was here, they really got rid of a lot of stuff. But when we moved them out, they had stuff up in the attic in Annex 1. We filled that trailer up at the fairgrounds, which is it's a double wide. It's full of their stuff. So we have a lot more stuff to get rid of. And it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And now we only have 9 months to do it. So, but we've been talking about it and chipping away at it. But offices, I'm sure, are going to need more help. I'm going to be asking, because we've made an effort. We have staff working on it continually, but we can only do so much a day or a week. So that's a challenge.
How much extra do you think is in this budget for things like that without going over budget?
I think it's about, you can get a temp for about $10,000. So a couple temps, we have, that much money, $20,000 to have assistance to do that.
But a couple of temps, you think a couple of temps is going to be able to fix you and fix economic development and fix WS, or they're each going to need a couple?
I've got one working with building and planning right now, so they should get closer to where they need to be. If we had a person for about 5 or 6 months, we'll get there. I don't know for sure about economic development, and you might have a better feel for that. Dave's got a lot of stuff.
It's a whole library.
Yeah, Dave's a big collector here.
Well, I would rather the board kind of discuss getting that handled, getting another temporary sooner rather than, continue to talk 2 weeks or 2 months from now and then we're back on. So
Yeah.
Especially if it's
something we need to.
if it's gonna delay moving Annex 5.
Right, that's what I'm
Because
saying.
they can't move till all everything's out of it.
On one side of the building. Yeah, I think that's something we need to take into consideration soon.
What is going to be the purpose of Annex 5 over there at the fairgrounds?
What's that?
What is the purpose of Annex 5? What is it going to do over at the fairgrounds?
It'll replace the fair board office. Basically, the fair board office was a barn,
Okay.
and it still looks like a barn that has doors and windows on it now. So, and it's wet, and they have electronic equipment. It's just not a great place for that. In the new building, they could actually have their fair board meetings in their building, in that space, and not try and have to use and compete with what's going on in the WSU room. So right now, but that WSU room and the Poultry building were the only 2 buildings with heat. We now have heat in the entire exhibit hall. So there are a lot more all-season places that are available for people.
Well, I was going to say, we have all of these meeting rooms for the conference rooms and everything for the fair board could meet in this building too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, anybody
Yeah.
will.
quite a few spots to have meetings now.
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about it. Since our janitors work late, one of the opportunities for people in the community will be to use that in the evenings as well. We can rent it out just like we'd rent out the fairgrounds, or however we want to do that.
Okay.
Ultimately, it'll be available.
My last question on this little map, just for clarification and to make me feel better about our path. I don't see a tree in this corner. I just want to make sure there's a tree in that corner.
Okay, so
This
this is one of the original ones. So
Right.
that whole yellow strip of parking, I should have mentioned that, doesn't exist. Yeah, it'll be parallel parking just like it is. And the big tree will still be there. Although these small crabapple trees,
Crabapples are
they
gone.
go away. Yeah.
Christmas tree, willow tree in the
Yes.
corner stay, got it.
Yep.
Just wanted a little.
Yeah, sorry about
clarification.
that.
Thank you for that. So yes, that's all parallel parking in that yellow.
Yes, just like it is now.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that was an issue a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Like, contrary to what, yeah, there was folks worried about, yeah, we were not gonna, clear cut the courthouse.
No. No. So the
We're
front,
still complaining about the crabapple trees.
Yeah, I know.
But
It's,
one of those
It's-
crashed into my Jeep last year, so yeah, they were.
you're like, go.
They
Yeah.
become a liability.
All right, continue, sir, sorry.
all right. So let's see, we talked about all those handouts. Project cost. So total cost of the project is a little over 22 million. So I have this, this is my sheet to keep track of everything. And this is the cost, total cost of everything for the project, including public works time, our architect, their sub-consultants, the contractor, moving people, building temporary spaces, everything.
Do we only have one architect or we had different architects in this procedure?
The feasibility study was a different architect, but we had one to
The design
design.
of this thing, we've had
Yes.
one guy. Who is that, by the way?
TVA Architects out of Portland. I had never heard of them before this project, so. So anyway, what I tried to do, and I tried to keep track of it, this is the one I use for the budget process, so it's a little bit behind, but it's actually pretty close dollar amounts for what we spent in 2020. I think we're about 6.2 million. This doesn't show, it was my best guess at the time, so I have to update it, but I'm just gonna let you know. So that kind of, tan line in the middle, that's first quarter of this year. So this is what we intend to expend in costs. So the graph of a construction project expenditures is kind of like it gets steeper toward the end, because in the beginning, we have all the site work, just one or two contractors, and we did the structural framing and the steel framing. Now all the subs are there. So the cost, we're going to spend a lot of money over the next few months. Plus, we're going to start the road work on Court Street in the front of the courthouse. So there's a lot left to do dollar wise.
How are we doing? Because that, I'm always watching the contingency, because that's always the hope that we don't actually have to expend that.
Yeah,
Where are we at? I mean, because we've got, almost $1.3 million in contingency built into this budget.
yeah.
And I know we had some early things that we came in significantly under as far as the environmental work and
Right.
as far as on the site, which was, I'm assuming is in that number too.
No. So that 700,000, there's a column, I don't know, about a third of the way over to the right. It's environmental cleanup, and that's at 670,000 basically is the total. It's the title is MP, on the very top, MP2-A-1, and right below it says enviro cleanup. That's what we didn't spend initially.
So that
That's an
would be in
addition.
addition to
That's
the
an addition,
contingency. Oh,
yeah.
okay, that's really good news.
Yeah, it is good news. So we saved that. At first we thought we had petrochemicals. Well, we knew we had them, just how deep they were. So ecology said, since we're not the source of the gasoline fuel spill, it was across the street, that we're not responsible to clean it up. We can never clean it all the way up because it'll keep seeping. So if we didn't get into it, we were okay, and we didn't get into it.
And I'm assuming, because I've been asked, and I guess I'd say guess the answer for people on why we didn't build a basement.
That's
And
one of the
my guess
reasons.
is the
Yeah,
contaminated soil from the gas station.
we would have ran into it.
Yeah,
As
that
it-
was, yeah.
Yeah, we did our investigation, and it was over halfway across the site, but it kind of runs on a slope. It gets
Right.
deeper as we get farther from the source. So, yeah, we saved that. So, and then there's also contingency built into the parking lots that Public Works is going to contract to build. So that's separate from that. So there is a little bit of fluff, but normal contingency dollar or percentages is 8 to 10%. So for the building, that's, 1.2 to 1.6 million, somewhere in there. And so we went on the low side of that. And right now there's also a change order log. So these next two spreadsheets are basically all the change orders we've processed so far. So there have been, the ones in red are the ones that we initiated. So there are things that we'll see that, we're going, this ain't gonna work for us. And, or this isn't right, or changes have been requested. So one of the things that we asked for, originally we had where Ibby Jane would sit, it was kind of open like it is now. And so with current events that we've gone through this past year, we made a decision that the other place like that was seniors, to close them off similar to the other offices. So there's a counter with a window that you can open and close.
Oh,
And so it provides security, and just given the conditions today, we'd have to have something there anyway.
Good thinking.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff we've changed, and other things that I have this little sheet kind of totals up the stuff that we've asked for. And the bad thing about not catching things before construction is it really doesn't matter whether you're getting rid of something or you're adding something, it costs you money.
Yeah.
It just does. The one thing where we've actually saved money, so you can see deducts, a lot of those are from the contractor going, hey, if you guys did this, I think the stairway was one of the big cost reductions, because it was originally a metal frame with precast concrete steps, and the time to shim those and get everything perfect is a lot more than buying a pre-made pan and then pouring the concrete afterward. So that was, you can kind of see that was $71,000 that we saved on that one. And so the contractor's been really good about looking at things and looking out for us, to try and save where we can. So there have been some deducts as well. So anything over $50,000, the way our policy is, whether it's a road project or the building project, I bring to you guys for signature. So I have the authority for everything that's under 50,000 to sign. And so what I do is I periodically, and I can do this as often as you want, come in and bring the change order log so you can kind of see where we're at and what things we've processed, if you're interested in that.
I like this if it's easy.
Yeah, so you can see where we're at. I think currently we have our access control system is another big one where part of it's the card lock, and access control buzzers to let people in, those kinds of things for our access control. Our architect didn't get in the plans where we wanted all those. And so we have another large, it's $60,000 currently. I think we're going through it, and it may be slightly less than that, but that's one that will be coming to you before too long. So we've eliminated everything that we can eliminate, things that were in the plans, but that we don't need, but we needed them somewhere else was more important, and we didn't get them. So, but other than that, we're solving problems for, the painting and the finishing of the place. So we're way out ahead with looking at things. So I think we've spent the bulk of what we're going to spend, but there'll be more things, as we all know.
But so far right now with your $569,000 in contract increases, that is, just covers what we were thinking about in the environmental side. So we're right
We
on
still
track.
have another $1.2 million, or almost $1.3 million in
On
what
the
we plan
contingency
for
side.
contingencies. Yeah.
Since we're actually back onto that sheet again, this might be a question for Dave. Down there by contingencies where it says tax 7.5% at 1.19
Yes.
million. I've heard numerous numbers on what the city's getting for this. Could you inform me of what your opinion is of what the city's getting in funding off of this?
Well, the city portion of that 7.5% is 1%.
100%?
We do get a rebate of, I believe it's 0.15 of the city's sales tax for just countywide. We do collect a little bit of sales tax inside the
So essentially, we're gonna
municipalities.
give them 1% and then take back 0.15 is kind of what you're saying.
6.5, of course, goes to the state. The state always gets paid. And then, so, yeah, so you could, yeah, in round numbers, yeah, so basically 1% of it goes to the city less. So they get 0.85%, I believe.
They also received $144,000 in permit fees and connection fees.
How much?
144,000. Okay, all right. So, and then I've been working with Greg. So Greg's doing the financing. The plan is to bond for this total amount. And I think right now we're on kind of a short-term loan. So we're not paying interest on the whole thing until at some point we'll roll it into one. He'll bond for the whole project. So that's kind of, and then at that time, there'll be a discussion of, we've already paid for some of this stuff.
Right.
Out of the county's funds already. Do you want to reduce the amount you borrow or just go out for the whole thing? So, but that'll be a discussion I'm sure Greg will have with you. Okay, we talked about storage space. Missed something, Kenny?
I think we covered pretty much everything on the list then.
Okay, so where they're at today, and then we'll go take a tour of the building after you guys have a chance to ask questions. So, like I said, they dropped the stairs in. Most of the stairways are roughed in.
Oh.
They dropped the east side. It's built all the way up to the 3rd floor. They dropped it through the roof, put the panels back on, and
But they haven't poured the,
they haven't poured anything yet. They were working late last night when I was over there, and they were finishing up the pans for the landing. So the west side, there's a shear wall that runs up, straight up, vertically up between the stairs, and that will have to be built. So they can't finish that side till they construct that wall. The windows, they measured for the windows at the beginning of the week, every one of them that they have flashed currently. So we'll look, there's a little piece everybody was asking about, that's the mock-up. And so now they actually have the windows in. So we'll get to see what that looks like, because there's some windows that they have some kind of a screen on them, basically, where you don't see through, and mostly it's architectural. So then that's at the bottom. So you'll see that when we go over there, and then the glass in the frame and how that will look. And then they'll come back and it'll get that eyebrow I was talking about to screen the hot afternoon sun in the summertime. And that's not on yet. And then the brick facade. So that'll be the first.
As far as that eyebrow thing gonna stick out?
It's a couple feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So the windows, they measured for the windows.
we're
And then they're
assuming the architect designed all that with the, the angle of the sun.
We hope.
Yeah,
With the help of Kirby.
yeah. The contractor has been really good. I'm really impressed with the contractor, Mike, and we'll probably meet him. He's the on-site superintendent. He wants to do a great job. And, we really got the right person over there. And so he's really looking ahead, pushing the architect, for stuff that might not quite be right. And coming up with ideas of how to fix stuff. And he's been really fantastic.
That's always was my experience too. You can draw anything.
Yes.
The guy drawing is
Making it work, 'cause he has-
Yeah, making it work. It's like, yeah, show me a detail how that's gonna actually
Yeah.
work.
He's picked this piece by piece apart.
Right.
I have one other question. It might seem weird. Do you have any questions?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
I've heard some of this before. And
I'm sure you have. I didn't.
One of the things that we haven't finished yet, and this is Lee's piece, and which is the video conferencing and the recording piece of it. So right now, what the architect put in is basically basic room controls and a PA system. But the recording system, I know that Lee's talked to Jeff and I've talked to Jeff, and so we haven't decided anything, and the idea is it will have video conferencing, your chambers, and recording. And what that looks like, we're working on it.
yeah, I'm kind of curious too. Jeff's really not shared anything with me.
Yeah.
I have asked him to give the board and everybody come together, do an update, but he won't be ready for a while. He's supposed to let us know.
Are you gonna have that option in the large conference room in the first floor too?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a part of it too. Whatever video conferencing we get for the chamber, we'll duplicate in the other room. And then if we want it in any of the smaller rooms, I think the setups in the smaller rooms will be much simpler to set up in the other conference rooms. So schedule wise, right now, the contractor said the windows in 4 weeks, a third of the windows will come in, and then they'll measure and fabricate more to be installed. On the first floor, he was saying by March, they intend to be insulating and closing that up with sheetrock. So that's provided they're able to get their roof on before then.
Right.
So, and I'm like, well, winter's gonna show up in February, so
Yeah.
that's what they're saying. So we'll see. It might delay it a couple of weeks, but like I said, he's watching and anxious to get the real roof on. If we go in there, if you're not worried about climbing ladders, you can go look at, you can actually go up on the roof. They have a place that's roped off. And so you'll get the view from up there, but you can see the
I gotta know
membrane
where
that's
the
up
picnic
there.
tables go.
So they're probably loving the fact that we haven't had a winter so far. It's not putting them behind. If we had 2 feet of snow, they'd probably be getting behind.
Yeah, it'd be worse. Yeah, much worse. Yeah. So you'll see they have a temporary membrane up there that is taking the place of the roofing material right now. And it's pretty thick, heavy stuff, but part of it is the drains to get the water out. So it's not quite perfect, but it's not too bad either. So once they get the stairs in, that's really where the water's coming in now, is through the stair openings. And once those get closed up, it'll be a lot better. But we're moving toward closing things
Well,
up.
they've dropped everything in as far as on the stairs.
Yes.
They dropped all the racks in there.
So
Yeah,
that they
they're
could
sitting
actually are
Yeah.
probably pretty close to closing.
Yeah, because
Closing those holes up.
the west side, the stairway actually goes to the roof all the way up. So that's not connected to, it's a different metal roof on that piece over that stairway. And so they could roof the rest of the building whenever they get a good break in the weather. So. So that's pretty much it for,
One of the things that's kind of important is COVID has played a little bit of part on acquiring materials and getting stuff done. They've had people that basically manufacture the timbers and some of the window stuff and some of the mechanical stuff is they had the parts, they didn't have the people because they were taken out. So
Yeah.
they're working through that. I
Has
mean,
it
they're
affected the cost much because of COVID?
not really.
not from our end.
Affected the cost of a 2x4, but
Yeah.
That's,
But we had a bid.
I'm
So-
glad that
Yeah.
we got a bid when we did.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we did.
Yeah,
'Cause it would have
It's gone
up
Who's the
significantly.
manufacturer of the CLTs?
It's an outfit out of Spokane, and as far as the blue lamp columns, they're out of Oregon. So there's two different manufacturers
Okay.
that do both of them, or each one of them.
Okay, questions?
Should we go on a tour?
Go.
Just a reminder for the chairman that I did have a couple of quick
Yeah.
updates. I don't know if you want me to do it now or if you want to come back over here after the tour before
Um,
you let everybody flee.
actually, let's do it. I mean, you're
I would
only talking
rather
like
do it
10
now,
minutes or so.
If that.
Okay, yeah, let's
Depends
do
on
that.
How many
before we-
questions you have?
Yeah.
Some of this may pertain to Gordy, probably not the first part, but the second part. The Facebook launch data collection thing, that has morphed into a much bigger deal. It was gonna be a bigger deal for me later, but the rest of the departments are kind of pushing for it to be a bigger deal now. We have issues with our data collection across the county and across the departments. And it sounds like IT and HR is trying to use this opportunity as we try to find a data collection service for the Facebook part of it to make sure that we are under compliance as a county in the rest of the departments. So it doesn't just pertain to us. So because it's morphed into bigger, it might take a little bit longer, and it may be more than $700 of whatever they come back with their thing. But they're just trying to do it right and make sure that all of our departments are covered, not just us. So that's kind of where that's at. That's the quick rundown on it. Yesterday, I had the meeting with the insurance companies, the prosecutor. And while if you've ever been on a meeting with lawyers and insurance adjusters, you get no answers. You get possibilities or risk aversion levels.
Right.
So essentially, surprising to me, so this is to cover the possibility of a tent outside the building so our people don't have to get wet when they're in the deal. So it is my understanding that if we needed more, we'd have to speak to the prosecutor, is that under the old regulations, the courthouse could not be open. He has possibilities that might be different under this new thing, but if we really wanted him to explore that, he would need to look at it and make an official recommendation. The insurance carriers will cover the tent and everything else just like they cover the building, but nobody will ever cover anything in litigation if there's a COVID litigation concern. But they all said essentially nobody in the country has been sued. No private businesses have been sued. No courts or no buildings, public buildings have been sued. It would be very hard for somebody to prove that they got it from you, especially if you limit your risk by not having it in the building. You're having it out of the building. You're leaving at least one wall off the 4-wall tent so there's airflow. You're maintaining 6 feet. You're having a mask. You're cleaning up. Essentially, could you be sued? Yes, you could be sued for anything, but your risk would be very, very low. I don't know that they said very, very. It said very low.
They'll never say.
But every one of them said the risk is very low, including Mr. Cannell. I talked to Erin with Public Health to see what her thoughts were as a public health issue on whether she would be concerned about it, and she has absolutely no concerns as long as there's at least some airflow in there. Like I said, 3 walls, and we maintain the 6 feet, and she has no issues there. So that's kind of the update, and I think Rob has advised Gordy of the potential of what it would cost for a tent. What are we looking at for a tent? I don't know any part of that, which is why we're having this conversation with Gordy. But that's where I'm at with that.
I think we're working on cost. The challenge this year is that we're going to tear everything up.
So placement is an issue.
Yeah, so if we could start out in the main parking lot with the tent or 2. We're limited. I think you have 3 people in one of those tents. So if we wanted to have multiple tents, we could. But at some point, we'll have to move them. And we could move them to the south side by the entrance to the jail. That would be out of
When
the
would we
way.
anticipate that though? I mean, when are we going to actually start tearing stuff up on our calendar?
I think they want to go out, advertise for the entrance construction in February, 1st of February.
To start construction like April?
It could be, it's possible the courthouse could be open by the time.
By the time that the issue I hope settles itself.
Either way, we temporarily have a fix for nasty weather for our people if we decide to go that route. So ballpark cost for throwing up a couple tents and a couple of.
I don't have it today. I mean, the tents, You know, we want something that's gonna survive, because we don't wanna have to set it up and take it down every day. So those tents are a little more expensive than the ones we usually buy for like the fairgrounds in the summer. So, you know, could be 2,000 to 3,000 for those. And then we have tables, unless we want to buy a picnic table that we can just throw out there that's durable, that's.
Well, that's
you know,
another
keep it
option.
later.
Move it over.
There you go. See, now we're thinking, guys. I love it.
Well, that all
Other
seems
than
doable.
nowhere to store supplies, you might, you know, Krista might want some pens or paper down there. And
Right.
somebody else might too, and you can't really do that on a picnic table.
And then this time of year, do you want to have some kind of heat, you know, for the next couple months? You know, those outdoor heaters so that people can kind of huddle around those at least.
Yeah, you see, that's where I would want to talk to the prosecutor and a lot more issues there, because if it was an outside propane heater type thing, fine. If you're running that propane heater
Yeah.
indoors, you're gonna be popping up
She's
litigation.
looking to see. I don't see him on there. He
They need
was
to wear a
earlier.
coat and not, and, because I don't know, I'm game on the propane heater, so I don't think the prosecutor needs to comment, because I'm not going there.
So
Okay.
we don't have any of those, I mean, because right now, even if you buy one of those $2,000 tents, they're still not snow rated. So you're still gonna have to be out there looking at them every day with the wind and all that. Those little pop-up tents that we have out there, can we put a couple out there and get them going so that these guys, when it's raining in the next few days?
We can, but we've multiple times had to fetch them back from being blown away at the
Yeah,
fairground. They're
that's-
anchored with big concrete
Right.
blocks.
Yeah,
Easy up, that's my worry about an easy up. The winds just, I mean, we had what, 57-mile-an-hour winds at my place the other day.
even one of those $2,000 tents probably wasn't gonna
Well,
survive
if
that.
you get a decent, like an elk tent, I don't know if anybody here hunts, but you get a nice big canvas elk tent with poles and strapped down to the top of the poles that are sticking out, and it ain't going anywhere. And I'm sure he's thinking the same thing with a big industrial type of tent that can be sticked and strapped.
And we'll use it, you know, we'll use it up there.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll get used.
I just don't want us, 3 weeks out and, the
Yeah.
snow's come and
Right.
people are still out here trying to get their
Right,
marriage
and that's
license
my
on the road.
concern with that as
Let's
well,
get it
is
done.
sooner rather than later. I don't want to get perfection and have this go in place right about time the courthouse opens.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes to get it moving, and we can always adapt it from there.
Okay.
That's my
I'd
thinking
say, yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, and I don't care if we have pop-up tents and you can put them up tomorrow so that the people, when the rains come, at least they're covered. And then when we find a better tent, we use the tent in the future anyways, but hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully we can open this thing up.
Okay. All right, we'll work toward that then.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
No, that was all I had.
With regards to that other thing, with the internet, so
Data collection, yeah.
the data collection, all of that is one portion of it. But if you started your own Facebook page as a commissioner, that's still stored there.
Yes and no. So my understanding of public records laws and what worries me, which is why I'm looking who's on the phone, we're in severe danger, because when you look at Facebook, if somebody puts a public records request and says, I would like to have a record of every post Mr. Anderson has made on Facebook since January 1, and all of the comments that people have made to those posts. If somebody deletes their post, if you made a post, sunrise in the morning, and somebody goes, hey, nice picture, and then a week later deletes it, or an hour later deletes it, if you didn't have an emergency catching system that caught that post, if the person that sues you caught that post and you don't provide it for them, you're failure to disclose. You're pending litigation.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a whole industry that
There's
is
an industry.
exactly.
We are
Yeah,
very
they do.
lucky in this county with what I've seen. I knew it was a problem before January 1st, again, looking to see who's online. After January 1st, it's become a major issue of mine to get us up to speed in all of the departments as far as data collection, data storage, to make sure we will comply and not get sued, or less chance of getting sued.
And we have had issues in the past.
Right.
And
And that's where
Well,
there's.
I will say for me, that is part of the discussion of risk versus reward,
Right.
is because the advice in the past has been, kind of across the board as far as, we obviously want transparency, we want people to have access to stuff, but the more records that you are creating, the more risk you have.
Yes, to some degree, but it's also.
Well, I don't think I think it just is, but is
I
that,
think
I mean,
it's-
is it necessary, is it
Right.
worth it to have folks to have that?
But you can
That's
also
an
have
analysis.
less because the software out there that's catching it, you can literally just type in, Jake Anderson Facebook, it compiles all the information. She just has to press print.
Right.
Shouldn't have to look for anything.
And there's a lot in those public records requests that you have to do. I mean, if you miss something, it happens. You have to show that you did the process to get it.
That you
And
tried to collect it the correct way.
That you tried to collect it and you tried to do that.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things in there.
Right.
Usually when we got hit, it was because we didn't respond in the 5 days or
Right.
something. That's what it wasn't that there was stuff that was left out. It was, when it comes in, when I got the public records request, I would type in all the emails and everything that I thought could be associated with it. I documented that this is what I did to search for these records, and then that qualifies it.
Right.
Because right now, we've got public health that's got a Facebook page, we've got economic development that's got a
Right.
page, we've got,
The solid waste.
public
I think,
works,
has
we've
one.
got sheriff,
Yeah.
everybody has a page,
And the
so.
difference lies is what they were going at is if they go with, say, a Smarsh, which was my recommendation for the Facebook stuff, it doesn't cover Smarsh doesn't do the other needs that the county does for data collection. So they would be having multiple people multiple companies trying to do the same thing. So they're trying to coordinate with other counties to see what they use and how they operate,
Right.
and get one system that would cover all of our needs for data collection. And that's just the quick rundown that I got from Rob yesterday.
If there is one system that can collect it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely need to do
Yeah.
something, just with or without.
At least hear what they come back with,
Yeah.
is my point. So like he said, he knows I was kind of in a hurry and I wanted to get going by January to make sure we were in the clear. But he thinks it's gonna take more than that. I understand.
And with that being said, though, where I was going with that is because Public Works and everybody else has one, if you want to have one, I'm fine with it. I
Right.
don't know where Dave sits,
Well,
but if you want to start that.
As the board I don't think the board has to give you permission to have a Facebook page. You would just be putting the board at least some kind of risk because of that public records request, and it's whether, I'm the same way. If you want to start one, but I think I'm just going to try to hold off as long as possible because I think I'm less risk averse as far as public records requests. I think I'm going to get hit with, more than you. So I'm going to try to pertain and stay off for now. But I don't have a problem.
I just look at it as everybody's already posted on my personal or my campaign, and I'm like, well, the sooner it's off of those two. the
Oh, I
sooner-
shut it off. My campaign thing didn't happen, closed it off, and my personal, I've just pretty much told people, don't talk to me about county business. I will not respond.
That's a good policy.
Yes. Yeah.
And for the most part, I don't even make a private comment over there because I'm afraid somebody will. I don't post on the Goldendale pages or something for the most part because I'm afraid somebody will make a comment. And I'm just trying to be less risk averse. So, because good luck. I mean, how is Lee gonna catch a post that I make on everything Goldendale? I mean, there's 22 different boards in this county. You have your own personal, but if you move off of it,
Right.
there's no way to catch that.
Yep.
So.
Well, and we're not even talking about, it's not all records are disclosable. In fact, lots of them are not. And there's so things have to be redacted and you have to go through.
Right.
That's the hard part.
Right,
It's
and
not
that's
that,
where-
like we could, because when I was naive, I was advocating, we'll just have a whole public system. Everything's on there. You just
Open her up.
open her up. And go, I'm not hiding anything. And then everybody's like, well, except. And if you release something that isn't, now you got liability for that. It's
Well,
like,
I had a
oh.
question of them earlier. What papers am I supposed to throw in this little blue bin? Recycling bin, is that shredder paper or is that just going to the trash can? to make sure I don't put something that needs to
Exactly.
go in the shredder in the recycling bin.
Right, that's
So-
why when I come
right.
in, I have, that's like you'll see, and it'll happen to you unless you're different, although I've never seen it yet, is that you will start accumulating stuff, and that's, paper in your office. And part of that is because we are given stuff that is not disclosable, that's, that it's confidential, it's, people's employment records, there's things. And I'm always so terrified, I go, because I am gonna, 99% probably is just can go in the recycle bin, it doesn't matter. But one thing left in there that goes to the recycle, and somebody, pulls out
Or it's the
their
original,
employment record that's got their social security numbers and all this stuff on it. And it's,
or it's
it's
the
got my,
original document that we should have filed.
right. Well,
As opposed to
I always
original.
assume,
Well, in case
That
you
are
created the
archived,
original,
yeah.
I sometimes create an original.
right, but we have good, I don't, but that is, go through, make sure, so before I throw anything in the bin, I have to look at every piece of
So
paper.
yes, I think again, your postings on Facebook, if you were gonna start one, or go post on the White Salmon page or the Houston page, I think it is low risk. But it's not risk averse.
Well, the one
so-
thing I know is that everything is risky and you could be sued
Right.
for
Right,
everything.
and that's
And
what
we
I'm
should go
saying.
take a
Right.
tour of this building
Yeah,
while it's
yeah.
sunny and nice outside.
Yes, I agree. All right, we are gonna
We gotta do.
head across the road here.
And so are we, Chairman, do you need a motion? to
Are
adjourn
we-
until
what
No,
is
we
this afternoon?
don't. The chairman can just say, we're going to adjourn the workshop for a tour.
Yeah, that's what I'm
All right, I am gonna go run down the hall to the little
I threw
boys'
my
room, grab my phone thing, and then I'll be back.
We'll be waiting.
Oh, yeah, we do need to bring our smartphones, I'm assuming.
Having fun.
We haven't started our meeting yet.
Especially at the Legion, because they're really good there.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. Good morning, or afternoon.
All these people and names that I haven't seen before.
And I went ahead and turned the recording on so I don't forget.
So we're set up with recording, we're set up, they can hear us.
Yep.
We are waiting for a minute or two until we can officially start for you people out there in video land. Did you move the camera, by the way, from this? No, did you move it from this morning to this afternoon?
No,
Because this morning you weren't in it.
Barely, yeah. If I turn this way to look at Dave, which I tried to, and then I'm not in the camera anymore.
Oh,
Now I'm in it, so
somebody must have
I
tweaked it.
meant to tweak it and I forgot, but then when I got back, I went to look to tweak it and I'm like, no, I'm in it. I'm in
You sure you didn't? And then so?
You just forgot. Did and forgot.
it. Getting a little early onset dementia. Yeah, there's a little of that.
No, because I did not move it. I
I
wondered
say
who did.
it's because Jake was in the full picture where.
No, I can still see you, so that's why I didn't move it. but this is way better.
I know I was sitting somewhere in this vicinity and I leaned back and I was.
You were just out of the
I was
picture.
picture and I'm like, all right, let's do what we're doing.
Okay. All right, I think we're close enough. It is 1:15. I will reconvene the workshop session of the Board of County Commissioners. All three commissioners are present. We're going to start with, we're going to be having a discussion on solar energy, solar farms in Klickitat County. This is a workshop session, so this is an opportunity for the board to have a discussion with itself in a public meeting and staff as we talk about this issue. So I'm going to lead off with the planning director. We'll get us started.
Are we gonna hear about Benjamin first or?
We can do that if you want, or do you?
I was just going to, in terms of the Bingen, I just want to let you know that I did attend the workshop Tuesday night and provided a presentation to the council members and then answered the questions that they might have. And then I followed up with the written bullet points to the mayor. So I just wanted to let you know that I did all that, and then we're just waiting to see if they have additional questions for me.
Okay. Have you had
Very
any?
receptive and thankful. The council.
It was a good discussion because myself was there and Jen Branding from the city of White Salmon.
Okay, good.
And then their legal counsel was there as well.
Good.
So it was a good discussion.
Great. Sorry, I was hoping to call in and I had something else come up, so that's why. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Okay.
So thank you. So now let's talk about solar development in our county. Before we dive into the main discussion, I just want to let everybody here and on the phone know that we have a planned solar tour scheduled in Pineville, Oregon. And that is going to be on the last Thursday of February, 6 weeks from today. Additional information is posted on the county website. So if anyone wants to RSVP or want to find out more information about that, please check out our website. So when we talk about solar development in our county, we really should not just focus on the EOC or the energy overlay zone. The primary ordinance that regulate planning and zoning for land use and development activities in Klickitat County is the zoning ordinance. The energy overlay zone is a section of the zoning ordinance. So it's a section 2.30 or the county code 19.39. So unless a land use is prohibited, it's clearly identified in our zoning code that is prohibited, the planning department must accept and process the application. So there are two ways to permit a industrial size solar project in our county. The first is, the developer can opt in to go through the stage process through the Energy Site Evaluation Council, the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council. I've said, we talked about that before. They have the authority to preempt local regulations. And if any involvement at all for local jurisdiction to be a part of that process, we will just be like someone who review and comment. We don't really have any actual authority to make any changes or make any, we can always recommend, but they don't always have to follow what we said. So we are kind of like a reviewer, comment provider. The second process is through local permitting, through the planning department. Even within that structure, we have two processes we can go through. So the first is the conditional use permit process. And the other one is the energy overlay zone process, the EOZ process. Both will be processed by the planning department. But the CUP would require public hearing. The energy overlay zone is designed to process it like administrative approval. So unless we receive any kind of appeal to SEPA, there will be no public hearing process. So a little brief background on the EOC, because I heard a lot of talk about the energy overlay zone. I was not employed by the county at the time, But my understanding is in the early 2000s, there was an acknowledgement that wind and solar farms could be compatible with the ag and rural character of the county. The then Board of County Commissioners decided to invest and make a policy decision to move forward on the development of the energy overlay zone. The intent is to have a tool for us to create strategies for establishing mitigation and steering the development to a predetermined locations. And therefore, the energy overlay zone does not apply to the entire county. It's only a portion of the county. If anyone wants to know where that is, we actually have those maps posted on the planning department webpage. And we're in the process of hopefully to have those files import to the GIS layer, so you'll be easily seeing whether your parcel is within the energy overlay zone. So the process itself at that time was not intended to permit any site-specific project. It mainly is really to develop an overlay and make it become a part of the zoning ordinance. So we went through an extensive public process. We have citizens, stakeholders, everybody to comment on it. And then we adopted the energy overlay zone in 2005. And wind and solar projects are permitted uses if the project is located entirely within the energy overlay zone. That being said, even though we have the EOC EIS in place, but again, that is just to inform the decision maker at the time whether we should have the overlay and have all those setback and height restrictions and mitigations, in terms of the environmental factors put in place. Individual projects still required to go through a CEPA process because we do not have those site-specific information at the time, so we will need to go through another process at the project level. If the project is, any component of the project is located outside the energy overlay zone, then they will have to go through the conditional use permit process. Our zoning ordinance is set up in such a way that not uses that we have today is identified in the code. For example, we do not talk about mini storage. It was never mentioned in our code, but we do have mini storage out there. And so they would go through the CUP process. Even though we don't have any kind of performance standard, during the permit process and the CEPA process, we'll identify any kind of impacts and have the relevant mitigations imported as a part of the conditions of approval. So that's how we work with the CUP and the CEPA. And just a note, CEPA is not any kind of permit or approval. It is a process. It is designed to work with other regulations in place. So, for example, if we require the proponents to get a stormwater permit with Department of Ecology, we identify that through the CEPA process. And this is the proponent's responsibility to go through these appropriate agencies to get what the relevant permit. We identify that in our code to make sure that they will do that. And sometimes we may even require them to provide us with a copy. But it's not like they have to get the permit before they can come back and apply for the land use process, the permit. So are we okay so far? Okay. So CEPA, is because this is a process, so you can apply to site-specific project, such as solar development, or you can apply to a non-project, such as regulations in regard to solar development. So I'm going to pause here because I think to further discuss about solar development in our county, we really need to make a policy decision in terms of, do we want to look at individual at project level, or do we need to change our county's regulations and policy to address solar development? Because if that's the case, not only we need to amend our zoning ordinance, we also need to amend our comprehensive plan because it's addressed in our comp plan that solar development or wind development are encouraged in our county. And that's been our goal and policy since 2005 to address those issues.
Okay. Questions on anything that Mochi's briefed us on to this point?
So, Moj, and this, a lot of this might be for the people that are on there, but I still want to ask the questions is that, so through the EOZ process, it is administrative, it goes in front of you, and then it goes in front of the Board of County Commissioners, correct? Or it doesn't even go in front of the Board of County Commissioners?
It does not require to go before the board unless there's a SEPA appeal.
Okay, but for the actual administrative process for the permitting of the application, you don't have to. If it goes through the conditional use process, it will, there's the SEPA process, which is the same, but the project itself will then go in front of the Board of Adjustment, correct?
Yes.
And then if it is appealed from the Board of Adjustment, it'll then go in front of the county commissioners. So there could potentially be multiple, or does it go straight to Superior Court?
It was go straight to Superior Court, and let me correct myself because we actually changed the code in 2010. Even with the SEPA appeal, it will actually go before the hearing examiner, not the county commissioner.
And this is for any conditional use permit?
No, it's just if the proposal is, so, energy overlay zone has a lot of regulations. So if the project is within the EOC and if it has a SEPA appeal, then it will not necessarily go before the county commissioners, because we changed the code basically saying that if anybody disagrees with that, it will go before the hearing examiner to go from there.
And that's only for solar and wind projects?
If the project is within the EOC, so that'll be the solar or wind.
And the hearing examiner is the judge and not a private individual that we appoint.
We have a contract, and I need to check it to see if that contract has expired. But we had a contract with the attorney that the board appointed him as a hearing examiner. And so that's something handled through the prosecutor's office.
Yeah, it may be expired by now because we
So
haven't,
we need to look
used
into
it.
that.
But yeah, generally the hearings examiner is appointed by the board to hear and administer on behalf of the board as a kind of independent third party. But it is, the board chooses the hearings examiner.
And it's a land use attorney.
Yeah, well, it could be. I mean, I don't know what generally speaking, you would want someone with project, that had experience and would have expertise in what they were hearing from. So I don't know if that's a requirement generally, though. Yes.
I guess my question is, do we have one hearings examiner that would hear multiple different projects over the course of a year? Or would we pick and choose a hearings examiner based on the project?
I think we could do either. I think in the past, we haven't used hearings examiners a lot. We generally have only had one thing going at a time. And so we pretty much, in the past anyway, have only just, we picked one for this case and that was it. And then we did have another hearing for, I can only think actually of a couple. I've sat through a couple just as an observer because I could, because I wasn't participating.
I just have this feeling it's going to be a busy year.
It could be, and that would be a discussion that the board would want to have as far as, do you have a pool of hearings examiners and then you would choose, but generally you have to get them under contract. But that would be something the board would have to decide what we wanted to do. So just to go back, I want to make sure I understood, because I did not realize that. So a SEPA appeal of an energy overlay zone project automatically goes to a hearing examiner. It does not come to the Board of Commissioners.
Let me just make sure.
Yeah, before you answer.
I have a
Yeah.
question when you're done with that one.
Because SEPA appeals in general come to the Board of Commissioners unless the board decides to appoint a hearings
So what
examiner.
I'm reading is the energy overlay zone section.
Right.
So
So this is only overlay zone specific.
let me correct myself once again, and this is the final answer.
Okay, final answer.
So for any SEPA response or appeal to any, to a solar project, whether that is go through the EOC process or a CUP process, they will appeal to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay.
And then you can make a decision whether to
Okay.
hear it or appoint a hearing examiner.
Okay, so we still have
For the
the,
SEPA portion of it.
right.
But
Okay.
if this is a appeal decision to either the CUP or the EOC decision, the EOC decision will automatically go before a hearing examiner
Okay.
because this is the way that it's set up.
Okay,
But for a conditional use permit appeal, it will go straight to Superior Court.
right. Because all CUP appeals go to Superior
Yes.
Court.
Apologize, I was a
No,
little
no,
confused.
no, you were correct, only
Yes.
it's a little more complicated.
Backing up like 3 minutes, I think you had a question. I heard that you kind of had a question for the board on whether they wanted to possibly shift policy for the EOZ and our policies or not, and I don't know that that was addressed back to you. So I think we probably should address that back to her.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the things that I had hoped this board would have that discussion, because I think all of this consideration of potentially, changing things, or do we have things in, do we have what we need as far as regulation? Really the critical question to begin it all is, what's the board's policy direction? If the board does nothing, the existing policy carries forward, which it is as of 2005. It not only allows wind and solar, all our codes are kind of built to encourage it, but that was a policy decision that the board, honestly, there's not a member that's here that was here in 2005. And I think it's important that the board, as it's constituted in 2021, revisit that. And because that would change, if we're going to change that policy, it would change kind of where we went from here.
Yes, and in the 2005 is when we enacted the energy overlay zone.
Right.
But when we talk about solar development, especially this one substation is located outside of the energy overlay zone, then we really, there's no other choice but to process a conditional use permit if we keep everything as is. But one thing we can assure the public is there will be a public process. They will have inputs one way or the other, whether we go through site-specific application process, or if the board decided to, make a policy change and we need to amend our zoning ordinance.
So I guess my first thought would be is somebody could, number one, they could apply for a solar project outside of the EOZ if they wanted.
Yes.
Through a CUP process. So if we did some ordinance with regards to solar, that would be its own ordinance where we're talking about solar. Okay, it wouldn't be part of the EOZ because it's separate from it. And I'm trying to think of what we would do within that ordinance that the SEPA process and the conditional use process won't address during that process anyways, when somebody applies. Because solar in Bickleton might look like solar west of 97.
I don't know that that's necessarily the people's argument. I think from what I'm hearing from the people's argument is, well, from the loud ones, is we don't want solar here, keep it in Bickleton. I don't know that the ones that are on our Zoom meeting outnumber the quiet ones that aren't saying anything. They might be entirely happy with solar right here outside of town. We as a board, I don't know that we know. And that's, I think that's the argument. If we are going to try to whatever downsize the EOZ or make a solar ordinance or an anti-solar ordinance or whatever, I would certainly hope that we would have a big enough public process that we hear from the majority of the people and not just the few of the people. And then make our decisions based on the people's wishes. And I honestly don't know which way that is, but I think that's the long-term argument. I don't think that's a short-term fix.
And I think with what people are talking about with the people's argument right now, as you say, is directed at one area west of 97, which Mochi, as staff just stated, that will go through the public process. So
Right, no,
in that instance, you will hear from people opposed and for, and it will be a public process. And if that SEPA is appealed, that will go through that process. And if that SEPA, and if that CUP is appealed as well, that will go through its public process. But no matter what, everybody's voices will have a chance and opportunity to be heard.
in this process, yes. I guess what I'm saying is if the current county policy is for windmills and solar panels, from the windmills on the ridge all the way up to the Simcoes, and that's our policy. I'm not exactly sure that people know that's our policy. I know I've talked to some that like that policy. I know I've talked to some that don't. Yes, the ones that don't will be able to have a voice in the permit processing, but it doesn't necessarily stop a project or a plan or our official policy. It just allows them to have a voice in that particular development, and not our policy thinking for the middle of the county. And it's not that I'm opposed to wind or solar in any regard. Actually love the idea. I think you have a lot of not in my backyard. And then you have people that don't necessarily have it in their backyard and they're happy with it. But I don't know. I just, it's a catchy subject that I don't think the knocking it, if it was to ever shift in a board policy and get it removed from our official policy to allow solar in the middle of the county here, I don't see that process or that public process happening in a hurry. But I would like to at least hear from the people and make sure we have the official policy that is the same as their policy, because we do work for them and are supposed to do what they want us to, whether we like the answer or not. That's my opinion.
Okay. I would say for me, I mean, I've obviously been here. I was not here in 05 when the energy overlay zone and kind of the policy groundwork was set, but I have supported that direction since 06 when I've been here, or I guess it would have been January of 07. Although I was on the planning commission before when we were working through the overlay zone, which I think it's important to recognize the overlay zone is not the end all of all energy development. It is a tool and has been a tool to try to encourage and focus energy development, principally wind to begin with. But I think that can't be understated that's not the only avenue, and that's not the silver bullet for or against energy projects in Klickitat County. But I have generally, and I still do, my personal opinion is I'm supportive of energy, industrial scale energy projects in Klickitat County. Not that they're not without impacts. There are impacts from them. There's always been impacts from them. And it was always kind of this weighing of the benefit versus the impact. And, we went through this exercise with wind. I don't know that solar is that dissimilar, that there are still going to be, that there's going to be impacts that are going to be identified through the processes that we have in place now. Whether it's the overlay zone, the CUP process outside the overlay zone, or any other process that we might have, SEPA. There's big, huge public processes that are set up for us to get information as to what those impacts are so that we can make reasonable mitigation. But it's that those processes, you're correct, are not set up to kind of back up the, whether you have them or not. That's a policy discussion or a policy decision by the board. And that's different as far as, and I think that's the thing that we kind of grapple with is, do we want to maintain the current policy direction of that we are generally supportive of industrial scale energy coming to Klickitat County with all those other conditions, those tools that we have to work with, because there are counties that they don't want it. They've said they don't want it, and their boards have put out, it never really started. I can think of one, that, the developer just went around it, went to FSEC, and that's something to always remember that there's nothing that the local board can do that absolutely guarantees there will not be any industrial solar in Klickitat County. There just isn't. And so it is, what's the board? Because the 05 happened because that board at that time saw that as a positive direction for the county go, and they set that policy in place. Commissioner Christopher.
I want to make sure, or I would like to hope to make sure that the board would not change its current policy, that we are pro green energy unless the public, if the public brought forth a list of signatures from locals that live in the central region, and it was a humongous list that I could think that it was more than half the population wanted to stop these projects, I'm on board with you.
Right.
If it's 10% or 20%, I have to be on board with the 80%, whether I like it or not. And I'm not willing to change our county policy based off information that I haven't received that we have a majority of people that want it stopped. So I have concerns. I have issues that hopefully we can get addressed through the process, and down the road, hopefully we can add to our current regulations so we don't have as much of this issue in the future. But as far as changing or making the EOZ smaller or outlawing solar or any of that, that is not any way, shape, or form my objective, unless the public brings forth evidence that that's what the majority of them want to do, and I have not seen anywhere close to that number currently.
Right, I would concur. Commissioner Anderson.
You talked to one thing about impacts to the county, and there are more than just the environmental impacts to a county. And we currently deal with the impacts on solar and wind in a certain way, and that's through mitigation. But there's a multitude of other impacts. And one of the things I would like to see in some of those impacts are aesthetics, some of those impacts are to the neighbors, to their property values. There's a multitude of impacts. There's also the impacts to the county at large. There's impacts to the long-term displacement of tax dollars and how that works, how those tax dollars are incoming. And rather than focus on trying to change the bounds of the energy overlay zone, I feel the best thing the board can be doing is work on finding and working with staff to find a way that we can assess those impacts and try to make everything fair and equitable to our county citizens. These are large-scale industrial organizations that are coming from other countries that see Klickitat County as a breadbasket for whatever they want to do. And they're causing impacts. They're causing impacts to our people. And I think those impacts need to be understood, as well as, I hate to use the word mitigation, but I can't think of a better one right now. But I think there has to be a way for us to receive some of those benefits from those impacts, or at least have a way so that we can receive value so that we can address those impacts with our constituents.
Right, but I also think there's positive impacts.
There, absolutely.
You know, we talk about the negative impacts, and that seems to be all we hear, but the positive impacts on taxing districts and schools and hospitals and fire departments and receiving more funding, not necessarily economic development, but it's pretty close to, might as well, you're throwing money into that pool. There's good things that come out of it as well, bad things. And like I said, I think we're all going to work on mitigation to the people that may be harmed by a specific project and try to look after their best interests, but there's nothing stopping this project, future projects, unless we have a complete change of policy, which the majority of the people would have to scream for. And it's my understanding that even then, if every single person in Klickitat County said no on solar, the solar company could still go through the state and you get it anyway. Is that
Potentially.
potentially? Yes, and it's happened in other counties. So that's
Commissioners Mochi, I didn't get on to the beginning. This is Brian Walsh from Avangrid Renewables, and I didn't know if you're taking public comment today or not.
I was not planning on doing it. I would
open
take
it up to the people too if you do.
right, and so it's I would rather the board be able to have the conversation with staff, because although I'm sure you could provide some technical information maybe, but if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to, we have a lot of folks on the call. We would just have to open it up to public comment. That's something, I mean, I'm open to doing that maybe a little bit later if that's the wishes of the board. I just don't want this to be public comment like on Tuesday,
Right.
where it's, you know, we don't really have an opportunity, you know, this isn't going to be question and answer time right now between the board and folks.
Yeah, to me, that's a public hearing.
That's a public
process,
hearing.
And I would love to hear from you, but in the fairness, to be fair, then I would need to hear from everybody on the other side too.
Yeah, no, I was just interested in providing like true or false answers. So the answer to the question, could you just go to Washington FSEC? The answer is true. Like that's all. I just wanted to be helpful in confirming some of these. Yep.
So again, that's what I thought I knew. So even if we outlaw it entirely, it doesn't mean you're not getting it. The governor is a green energy governor. He absolutely loves these projects as long as they're not in his backyard. So we have to accommodate accordingly, or you get it right downtown middle of Goldendale. So yeah, until the people come forward with a giant list, I have to support the majority of the people. And right now I have a feeling that's on the pro energy side.
And it's always good to have local control, and just FYI, the 2020, the state energy strategy policy just published from Commerce, so you can take a look at that. That was an update from like 10 years ago.
I have not actually seen that yet.
Could you email that out?
I could email that to the.
Could you please? That would be helpful.
I would still like to eventually get back into, and I don't know if we have that on the agenda today, the whole governor's order or new law last year, green energy tax exempt status, and make sure we're not going to get bid on that one. I don't know if that's happening
That's
today.
not on,
For
I
today,
think
but
you
we,
went under, you probably want the assessor here. And
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
although I did when I spoke with the assessor on Tuesday, I believe she is actually on, or she had hoped to be able to be on the call
That was my
in case-
understanding.
Oh, okay.
in case we did have some stuff, because there's kind of a piece of the discussion,
Right.
I think, around those assessments. I also see,
But otherwise,
Mr. McClure, can you come up so folks can hear you? This is, actually, I guess they have the camera on too, so they can see you coming up.
If I get 6 feet away from Mochi. then-
Yeah. There we go.
You're talking about the positive impacts. So there's renewable energy's been a core economic development strategy for the county for the last 15 years, while we've had a hiatus in development since 2011. it's remained a core. And I tried to do some update on what those impacts are. Getting jobs data for this industry is very hard because there are all these LLCs and they record around. What I ended up doing, I'm able to get numbers for about 30%, 33% of the wind farms in the county. So extrapolating out from what that is, we've got on the order of 100 to 120 wind energy jobs in the county. Salary ranges on that, talking to project owners, energy technician, they're in the 52, 75,000 a year range. You get into supervisors and operations managers, then you're running 80 to 115,000 a job. I mean, this starts out at what is the median wage. The median wage in Klickitat County, $52,000 a year. That's at the bottom end, and it goes up. So these are pretty good jobs. It's hard to get jobs when you're looking that kind of jobs when you're in the center part of the county going east, because our numbers are skewed by the west end.
So our average number of 52 incorporates the higher wages in the west end.
Right. People are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So it also incorporates the bottom end, 14,000 a year. So I don't have the median wage at this point. Then there's the impact for the landowners. These are private contracts that we don't get to see, and I won't ask because they've got non-disclosures for them.
And they won't tell.
No, but if you take, I looked at what.
But I don't know that they're telling you the real number.
But I look at what DNRs do, which is public information.
Yes.
Like on the Lund Hill project, the Commissioner of Public Lands, she was verbal about it last year. Or they're getting $300 an acre for land they had been collected for the school trust funds, $2 an acre. And they've got 480 acres of DNR land involved in that. For this property out by Knight Road, that price is up. They've got 580 acres in a lease, $614,000 a year for that lease. So that's a little north of $1,000 an acre. I don't know that the private landowners are getting that much. This was an auction and that's the way it turned out. But so it suggests also that land near Knight substation is going to be very attractive.
It was an auction between solar companies is more than likely what happened.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly.
Yeah. It wasn't somebody looking for grazing rights compared to the solar farm.
No, grazing rights not going to pay.
Is anybody aware of a potential development in Bickleton called Bluebird? Anybody heard anything about that yet?
Yeah.
More information on that?
Yes.
I'm sure he has.
I can speak to that.
Another meeting for that one, but back on track.
Yeah, and again, back to this question, there's going to be pressure to develop out near that substation. I mean, the land prices, the lease prices that are suggesting that's very attractive, and there's going to be pretty strong motivation to build those projects if they get leases.
So I guess the question that we have is there's no way for us to stop it.
Officially, no matter what we do.
No matter what we do, there's no way to stop it. So the best we can hope for is to mitigate for impacts. And the best way that we have the most amount of oversight over mitigation of impacts is keeping it through the local process, where we're driving the process rather than just being commenters. That's where we have the most amount of ability to make direction. Yes.
The way SSEC's organized under section, I believe Dana mentioned at the last meeting, currently one county commissioner can sit on the SSEC panel for the specific, for a project within their jurisdiction, or if it's a city, they can sit on that. There was effort last year, or in Commissioner Sorry, you may recall, to try to get one representative for all of the counties through WASAC as they were reorganized, but that bill
Was unsuccessful.
didn't make
Did
it.
it fail miserably or did it have?
So you do get one seat at the table, but you're one of several.
One of them that's a pretty large board. So,
Yeah,
Of
that's good, that's
predominantly-
kind of how it worked out.
Predominantly west side of the mountain, folks.
so. Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, I'm always an advocate of local processes, local. They're not perfect, but I think we are closer to the people and we have to live here. And so we do try. Now, that doesn't mean, I know there's a whole bunch of folks on this call right now that don't, they don't think we're necessarily listening to them as far as or would maybe listen to them in a local process. I think there's a difference between listening and, incorporating that into, but I've said this before, if your goal is that you don't want industrial scale solar on Knight Road, that is at odds with the county's current policy. Unless we're going to change that policy, I can't go there. What I can do is through our local process, try to identify those impacts and try to reasonably put mitigation that tries to address some of them. Again, I can't get us to no project. That's the ultimate in mitigation.
For that one.
Yeah, it's not. Plus, if we got there, that's not going to happen, because I think based on the investments that have been made out there by BPA, I think it is inevitable that there are going to be projects built around that substation.
So if we say no to solar, period, they're going through the state and you're gonna get it anyway, and you have no control and no say over the process.
But you'll get one commissioner sitting on a board of plenty
Yeah,
to as the local representative. So I have a lot more faith in us doing it.
just long-term, I would like to clean up some of our regulations, but we can look at that down the road. That has nothing to do with Knight Road.
With that being said, knowing, because we do know that this is coming, we know that it will be going through the conditional use process, as Mochi said. The Cease Group and others have brought up very, very good questions.
They have.
They have done a great job of doing research. And I think it would behoove us maybe to create a subcommittee or something to look at what potential possible conditions could be put on solar projects in this area. The faster and further we can get ahead of this, the better the community will be behind whatever happens in the end, because they know, like, there was a discussion on, it could be 500 feet from your house or it could be 1,500 feet.
Right.
That's within our ability for parts on a conditional use process. We have those abilities to say.
Right now, who is gonna decide whether it's 500 or 15? Is that in the mitigation process?
That is a part of the permit review process. So typically, the developer would present a layout of a location where we want to place those
I
solar
guess I
panels.
would,
Right. And they're likely going
If
to
they
ask for
say-
500.
right, if they say 500 feet, is it you that says, no, this needs to be 15, or is this through somebody else?
So during the permitting process, those residents nearby, they will also receive notifications.
Right,
And they rely on them to contact the planning department and give us their comment. So for example, the one in the Stapleton, the only project that we approved, the landowner is within 540 feet, give or take,
Right.
expressed concerns to the planning department. So I forward those comments to the developer and ask them to have a conversation with the landowner to find out what exactly they have concerns about. Is there anything that they can either meet with some compromise, whether they can maybe relocate some of those panels or have a greater setback or whatever that might be. And typically, planning doesn't get involved with those discussions. And with that, we receive a letter from the landowner. Other concerns may not be addressed that the landowners have, but the issues about the glare were addressed. And it was indicated in writing that those are no longer an issue. And so we didn't ask the developer to change the layout, because apparently it's been addressed. So that's how I make that determination, because they meet the minimum, the lower end of that range of setback requirement.
through this process of the continued CUP process or EOZ process or whatever they choose, are we as commissioners gonna have any, I guess I would say, public input to our opinions on things like setbacks or whatever? Are we just sitting out of that and waiting until it lands on our desk and decide whether we're gonna?
It goes through the Board of Adjustment on the CUP, so it's the Board of Adjustment's views on. what
Decision
they
on
would
whether
like
it's
to
500 or
set.
15.
Yeah,
Right.
they set those conditions.
Okay.
I would say though that the administrative part to the planning director, the planning director is administering the plan in, with consultation and guidance from
Right, got
the
it.
Board of Commissioners as far as,
Right, that's what I was just trying to
Yeah.
confirm.
And the 500 to 1500 only apply to project within the energy overlay zone. If you're outside and you're going through the CUP process, we do not have any numbers specified.
right, so that it's whatever
It really
is
is going-
determined.
We have to believe in the process.
So I guess we know this is coming. If somebody puts in an application through the CUP process to move through it, that then takes us kind of out of it because it could be coming to us. So we're not gonna be making, those kind of decisions. I guess it would be coming to us through the SEPA process.
SEPA, it could.
What I'm saying is like, you have your usual set of conditions that you put on in NEMDNS. Then you have your CUP potential conditions. Would it behoove us to have either a group or a subgroup with Dave and Mochi to talk about what those conditions could look like? We could say something like, it would be 1,500 feet unless the neighbor worked it out with the solar company
Right.
so that they can find out what works for both of
Or
them.
unless there's a hill in the way that nobody sees it.
I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why 1,500, I hate arbitrary numbers. in
Right,
everything.
right. And I agree, but I also want to make sure I mention that I 100% support your idea of making sure that the opponents, the CEAS group, has maybe more than just a simple voice during a public hearing, and you have some kind of a subcommittee that as long as everybody's civil, they can have at least a voice on, if possible. Just an idea out there.
Well, I don't have any, because I think there's some things to flesh out on industrial solar versus, wind. I mean, I think we have a lot of history. We've kind of set a lot of this stuff through wind. We have not had that same,
Another discussion.
we really haven't. I mean, and the how we did it through wind is we did it through practice. We kind of figured out what was working. There was negotiations that went on
In here.
between developers and adjacent landowners and stuff, and we kind of ended up with precedent got set, and we've done that. We have a little bit now in solar with the Lund Hill. There was some interchange, but I think there's an opportunity. I think there'll be a lot of it that is going to go on if a project happens out on Knight Road, just because we obviously have a group of concerned citizens that, again, have raised really legitimate concerns about things
And it
that
was that precedent.
yeah, and I think I'm not sure what that mechanism would be, but Mr. McClure.
I just think, I mean, those concerns are the kinds of concerns that you hear during the SEPA process and are addressed, and they're more project situation
Right.
specific. Okay, this is, what are the visual impacts? So there are simulations done as to what it looks like from different points, and then how do you address those impacts if there are impacts? You're dealing with it. You've actually got something that you can get your hands around. What is this project rather than some, imaginary, arbitrary.
Just brainstorming off the top of my head, I guess theoretically you wouldn't have to make some kind of a group that CEAS can be a part into that, but maybe we could have some temporarily, 6-month type of whatever temporary we want to make temporary It's actually a citizens advisory group to go over thoughts and ideas from the public. That would have a CEAS person on it, but would have a solar person on it, would have a, you know, a broad range of ideas that then can present us the public's idea. I don't know, just brainstorming. Right.
No matter what, it's gonna be difficult because we're in the middle of COVID.
I know, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
I mean,
That is
And we
hard.
learned from the Zoom meeting I was on this morning, that not everybody has figured out computer systems and Zoom meetings yet. So it gets very difficult.
It is.
To not be able to have a real public hearing or a public meeting.
Right.
So I guess for me right now, though, knowing that anything on Knight Road is gonna go through the conditional use process, I personally feel like the process will protect the citizenry. I feel that the process will protect as well as the applicants, because I want the applicant, there's applicants listening. I
Right.
want the applicant to know that the process is gonna be fair, it's gonna be equitable, and in the end, hopefully everybody can live with whatever comes out the other end. Because I don't want them to just think like we're against it and they're gonna go through the FSEC process, because that takes our ability for the negotiation out the window.
Well, I would like to say I have no interest in letting this go before the FSEC process, and will do everything I can to make sure it don't. I do have one question about the CUP process. So if Knight Hill continues, I believe I know it, that most of the solar panels will be within the EUZ, but they'll have to run power up to the substation. The power line itself, would that be the only thing that has to go through the CUP process and the solar would go through, or then all has to go through the same process?
It's the whole project.
Okay, so
Without
the
the
whole
panel,
thing
there's
couldn't go through the
nothing to
EOZ.
transport out. Without the power line, there's no way to transport whatever generated with the panel.
Integral part of
If they're hooking up that power to that substation, they cannot go through the EOZ process. They have to go through the CUP process. Good enough. And I agree. I'm local control, way better, not interested in state control.
I would say for me, having been here, I do trust the process to, again, if you're trying to use the process to stop something, I mean, if that's your sole gain, then no, these processes are not set up real well for that. If your process, I mean, it is possible. I mean, these processes can stop projects and have stopped projects if, as you go through the process, the level of impact gets to be impractical to mitigate, meaning the actual impacts that are raised in the process, that there is no reasonable mitigation. It's possible, but generally they're not. These processes are set up to identify those impacts and then come up with a plan for a way to mitigate that impact down to what is acceptable for the permitting agency. And so I trust the processes to be able to do that.
Right. And some of what these solar people may not, anti-solar may not understand is we're already dealing right now with public health and the governor trying to take public health during a pandemic out of our local control.
Right.
He won't stop to put solar out of our local control. So yeah, I want a part of that process. So I think we answered your question on policy direction.
You think so?
I think we're staying
I think
status
so.
quo.
Basically, there's no change at this point, and we will go through the process and go from there.
We'll go on a tour and then we'll re-talk about it.
So a little bit more about the tour is currently I coordinating with the developers. So we're going to the developers, like 2 project sites as a public meeting. So the public are more than welcome to contact planning department, and then we'll put you on the list. The reason for that is because I need to have enough personal protective equipment so that you can tour the project site. I did not coordinate with the Crook County officials to have any discussions because I just didn't think we would have time to do it that day.
Right. I would say based on my earlier thing, it's a full day
Yes.
just because of transport, transit there and back. just touring the two facilities
Yeah,
and asking questions. I mean, it was nice to have lots of time to ask
The
questions.
commissioners will be touring and asking questions. I don't believe we're gonna be having a bunch of public debate and
No,
public input and screaming matches, and none of that will be.
no, this is a public meeting, and this is the Board of Commissioners
Right.
meeting, and we will be in charge as far as what's
Control.
And I know
right.
that there might be some expectations that the Crook County officials may be there, but
Right.
it's not the case as yet, but if
Right.
that's something that the board wants me to try to see if they're available, I can certainly do that, but, what Commissioner Sauter was saying,
It's an
we
interesting-
visited that last time,
Yeah.
and it's actually pretty rush.
Yeah, we got moved along just because it takes, there's a lot to see, and there was a,
I'm actually looking forward to going back because they still have property about 3 miles from
Oh.
one of those developments.
that's good, and I don't know, are we going back to the same projects? They are, okay, that's good, those are good.
The Crook County, there were no Crook County
But-
commissioners
No.
there last time, correct?
Hey, Mochi, I've already invited Ann Byer, who's the planning director from Crook County, to come to the gala site with us.
Okay, so, I just find that out just. as they contact you.
All right.
Then would
Thank
you
you, sir.
contact me?
Okay.
Yep.
No, and I have every expectation. I hope some of the members of the public does travel out. I think it would be a good opportunity for them too. And I have every expectation that it will be, right, and that people will get an opportunity to actually learn some things and, see it firsthand. And I think it'd be a real benefit. And I really want to thank our planning director for setting that up, and the developers, the projects, the people that own those projects out there, because they're two different companies. It's not that they understood, because when I had made the suggestion to do this as a having the full board go, that they understood that makes it a public meeting, and that as a public meeting, the public can come along. And I was pleasantly surprised, because as a private company, I don't know that I would want to do that. And so I'm really thankful that they're letting us do that, because otherwise it would have been that you would make a tour, go make a trip, then Jake would have to go out and make a trip. And it's just so much better to have us all there at the same time, hearing the same stuff, and able to ask questions that just, organically come up as you're kind of looking at these facilities.
Also want to make a stab out to anybody in the public that is thinking about going for this. We want you there, but I'm gonna speak to our public health directors to make her proud of me, and I'm gonna tell you to don't carpool. COVID safety while you're driving to and from.
Yeah, it's a long drive over there. So
Don't bring back any cooties from Prineville.
yeah, or take them, I guess, for that matter, too.
Thank you, Mochi, for
You're welcome. Thank
the
you.
update. I'm glad I asked the question, because apparently I didn't know the exact direction it went.
The mediator part, I wasn't sure on that one.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was informative and went well, gentlemen.
yeah. Anything else? Yes, Madam Clerk.
Speaking of keeping things locally controlled,
Oh, yeah.
Chairman Sauter had asked me to forward it was a letter that came from Wasac, and then I prepared a letter from the county.
Yeah, I was hoping it kind of supports the Wasac, and this was the Wasac letter. I don't know if I did ask her before. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. It was a much more eloquent explanation of the position that was being expressed on Tuesday by both the health director and I believe myself and other members of the board, with our, I would say,
If it
frustration.
was the one I read, I liked it. I just thought it was really long.
This is a shorter, this is our
Yes,
shorter version.
and I did use like their points
Yeah.
and their general direction.
The only comment I had, and I was gonna see, was, and I don't know if I didn't get a chance to compare them next to each other. Oh, it was in the first paragraph, about midway down, where it says the absence of a collaborative planning and decision-making process took away any opportunity to build agreement or support for the plan. Well, now that I read it now, I'm not as cranky. I was
Still kind of wordy in my world.
yeah, but that is pulled from there.
Yep.
I mean, it's pulled from Wasak's letter, which I thought they because several of us had pushed on the executive board and the it's like we have to say something, and we don't need to. We're not being negative. It's not saying we want to throw rocks at the effort that's being done and the governor and all that stuff. It's just that we felt like we were either cut out of the nobody listened to us, or nobody even asked us. And then maybe the ones they asked, they didn't listen to anything that we said. And so I thought it was really important. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I thought it would be good. I thought the county ourselves should have our own letter in, so it's not just the executive board of Wasac, so that they understand.
You guys been contacted by any of the hospitals to do this?
No, although I did talk to all the hospitals yesterday.
Yeah.
We got a phone call yesterday and she asked me to relay this, which I did to Commissioner Christopher because he was here yesterday. Jane Palmer, who was a former public health nurse with our department, she's working with North Shore and they're doing vaccinations down there.
Yeah.
And her and I think there were like 3 other fellow nurses were talking. Well, she called on behalf of all of them to say, well, they were encouraging the board to contact the state.
Okay.
And they would like to move forward with vaccinations and not have to be subject to the regional strict rules. She said, we're ready to move forward. We have vaccinated everybody that wants a vaccination and we need to move forward with this. And so I wanted to relay that to you folks.
Has anybody talked with Aaron to find out if Inslee's made any statements today
She
following?
thought, same one.
Oh, they.
She thought maybe she'd hear something by the end of the week.
Okay.
Right, I had checked. I spent most of yesterday on the phone on this issue.
Yeah, okay.
I did have a chance. I didn't know at that point. I was really more talking about the Wasac draft, and that I was looking for feedback and support from the hospitals and North Shore on us, kind of supporting that, commenting on it. And it was universal. They said, yes, please contact the state. They were fine with the county taking that position. It was pretty universal. They were, I think, we had the discussion, and some of them were actually on the call on Tuesday when we were talking, when Aaron was updating the board. And I know there was some pushback out in social media, I guess, which is why I'm not a big fan of social media. Although it showed me that people misunderstood, or at least from my perspective, misunderstood what our position and what we were talking about. Because I heard comments about they weren't even sure who they were, who was commenting. It was like, no, that was me. That's what I said. You completely took the wrong meaning from that. Was that, this was not, it was, we want to work with the State Department of Health, and it's as far as on the vaccinations, it's if we finished all our 1As and we have vaccine left over, it shouldn't be sitting in the freezer. We should be able to move on to the 1Bs.
Well,
And that's universal from the hospital. They all say that. It's like, we're ready to
But
go.
they also want to know, when are we getting more? And I kind of
Right.
wonder, are we not getting more because we still have some in the freezer?
Well, it could be, and that was the issue raised, is both hospitals, North Shore, I did talk to Dr. Samuels yesterday. And I would say, there is concern with, I had used the word punishment. Apparently that was inflammatory to some folks. but I kind of stand by it. I think the concern was future allocate, if we go rogue and
Right.
kind of do our own thing, that there could be impacts to future allocations of vaccine from the state. I'm not advocating going rogue. I don't think the county was but I think that what I heard and what I kind of acted on was communicating with the state, as far as to that, just asking for local discretion to be able to move us forward as we, in conjunction with the hospitals and all the healthcare professionals, the health department, everything, we as a group moving us forward. That doesn't sound like that seems like a pretty rational point of view to have. My conversations with the hospitals, they support that approach. That's exactly what they're asking us to do, and hence why we're going to send a letter. That's basically what this is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
that being the case and knowing that things could change by the end of the week,
Right.
but yet we still are in this position and will likely be in this position when we go to between the next set of phases. I'm absolutely fine with this letter that was drafted. I say we change the date from January 19th to January 14th, and we sign it today and we get it sent off, and then we forward it on to the Board of Health, and get it on the Board of
Right.
Health packet for information so that everybody has it and knows exactly where we
Right.
sit.
Right, and I would hope, my goal would be when the Board of Health meets, that the Board of Health would take action and send a letter,
As
their
well.
own letter as well, because I think there would be some weight to that as well.
So I guess what I meant with that is I'm making the motion.
Yeah. Are you okay with this?
Once it gets into its final draft form.
He's got some typos for me.
Oh, typo, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Dan's checking for spelling. How about that one, right?
I rely on you guys to, and sometimes my brain is
Right.
different than my
Yes, once it gets in the final draft form, I have no problem with any of the wording in that letter.
Okay.
And I also have
And
no
it's-
problem with backdating the date to the 14th. So
So you were just talking grammatical, but you're
Yeah.
fine with the letters.
With the substance of the letter.
So is that a second?
that's what I just did. I
Yes.
seconded the
You
letter.
really don't need the
For
motion
letters.
on this. You guys are concurring.
Okay.
Like on workshops, we really don't, they don't,
That's true. We can't
Motions
take an
were
action
not-
anyway, can we?
Wait, we're still an open public meeting, right? We can take.
Yeah, no, we
action.
could take action. I guess in the past, it's been a letter, because the action, if you're signing it, you obviously were okay with it.
we are in the new normal, so
Yeah, that's true. If you want it on we certainly can have a motion and a
If you
second
want the record
authorize
with
it.
a motion.
The reason I want this on the record is because I want all three of us to vote on it rather than
Right.
having all three of us sign it. And
Okay.
so that's why.
Yes, sir.
No, we're fine. with
I'm
that.
always happy with both, so I will second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, ratifying and that we're gonna send this letter to the Secretary of Health. Any further discussion?
The only discussion I'd like is I think it would be worthwhile for us to put this up on our page, our county website, because I tried to show people the draft, just with this, but that doesn't do it. Yeah, I already did that.
You already did that and it didn't
Yeah.
work?
Well, I don't know, maybe somebody could read some of it, but it's a lot easier when we just put it up when it's signed.
I would also add to that, because I want the Wasac letter posted too, because that does kind of show the statewide.
Yep.
Like we're not out there by ourselves.
Good
This
point.
is everybody. This is the State Association of County, which is all 39 counties.
Right.
So any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, motion passed. We'll get a clean copy without the typos and we'll sign it before we leave today. I had good conversations with all the healthcare folks yesterday and Aaron.
Yeah.
And I did talk to, I reached out Commissioner Hamlin in Skamania County, kind of ran down a rumor there that they were, because I wanted to know what were they doing? Because I was hearing things, oh yeah, Skamania County's gone on, they're vaccinating 1Bs, and it's like, okay,
I'd heard that too.
yeah, that's not true.
Total
They've
rumor.
made a list, they're ready, but
Right.
they have the same concern, is that they want that local to be able to move forward, because they feel like they've done everybody in their 1As and they still have some.
You know, if the state came back and said, we're not giving you more because we just don't have enough stockpile yet, or we haven't got a shipment or something, that'd be fine. But the whole non-communication thing is not very governmental.
Right. Although I will say one hospital administrator did raise, and I think a valid point is the one reason that because there is discussion about reallocating. So if there are counties that have unused vaccines and they're done with all their 1As, reallocating it somewhere
Oh,
else.
they're gonna pull your vaccine away from you?
Well, and of course, we your knee-jerk reaction is, oh no, I don't think so.
You're not touching my
That kind of
vaccine.
tells me that they don't have the stockpile that they wish they had, or they're not getting as much more that they wish.
Well, but the was raised is one way of looking at those. If there were healthcare workers, 1A workers that were unvaccinated in a location because they had used up all their allocation, that's open to a discussion. Like if you were going to, if that's what they were talking about, reallocating it, taking it from here and giving it to these people, that's a different conversation than just you aren't using yours, we're going to take it.
Yeah, but I think
somewhere else.
anytime they're thinking about taking yours and giving it to somebody else because they don't have any to send to that somebody
Well,
themselves.
And I did, that's the,
So
what
that's
I,
kind of the answer to the question right there.
right, my understanding is they have said until that all vaccine stocks in the state have been distributed. So there is no
And they're
stockpile,
expecting.
but they are
more
expecting the
Monday.
more, right? So, but we should get some idea because at the federal level, they've said they're releasing everything. And so we should get a bunch more in, but that's not confirmed yet. And it's, at this point, everything has been distributed from the state stockpiles to the local folks. So we'll see. So more to come on.
I have
this, but-
one last thing.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. It was brought to my attention a few days ago. I forgot to bring it up during the solar panel discussion, but I think it's more of a decision on our parts than anything else. And it's, and I just got reminded of it. The DNR owns a lot of that property up there by the Knight Road substation. We just agreed that anything that hooks into that substation is going through the conditional use permit process. Our planning director said the same thing. The question was, is there an end around that the solar companies could do where they work with DNR and go through DNR's process to put in the power line across DNR's property so that it's inside the EOZ where everybody hooks up to it? You understand what I'm saying? But either, so what they're saying is the DNR could come in for a conditional use process or just do it through themselves, run a line down through DNR's property to inside the EOZ so that whenever somebody comes in front of us, they're saying, we are going to use the EOZ process, not the conditional use process, because there's already a line that we're tapping into.
Right. CISA's had that argument for well over a month. I think I heard that back when I was just a private citizen, actually. But I guess that would have been a great question for Moshi is, does DNR have to go through our conditional use process?
I think everybody does as far as, but I also think we can.
I don't see why we can't say simply, if you're hooking up to
the Knight Road substation, you gotta get.
you're going through the conditional use process, and if you want, and somebody just sent it to me again today. If we want a motion to that effect, so that everybody knows exactly where we stand on it, I'm fine making that motion right now.
Because that's our
That's our policy.
policy.
I make the motion. If you're hooking up to the Knight Road substation for solar power, you will go through the conditional use process for the county level.
I would second that motion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think that's consistent with what our view has
It
been.
might be that way anyway, but just for
It's real clear
the sake of goodwill, it's clear now to the people out there. So yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed.
Now there's one more that we can move beyond. Oh, Sage got to us. Sage Park gave me a phone call while we were on the tour. Ecology will be, just so everybody knows, Ecology is launching their environmental review process for the Goldendale Energy Storage Project. And Sage would like to, I think, talk with each of us individually about what their process looks like for the state. So just want to make sure everybody's well aware of that.
Okay. Any other issues before the board?
I know the minute we adjourn, I'm gonna come up with something. I'd have to wait till next week to tell you, even though you're 4 feet away from me.
Yeah, that's true.
No,
If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion that we adjourn till next week.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? I'm not allowing any debate. Say aye.
Thank you, everyone, for
Aye.
calling in.
Good bet.
It means a lot.